Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Too Hard to Pass podcast. I am your host, Juan Martinez, and we are making hand gestures and stuff.
Hand gestures, baby.
Woo-hoo! And back in the building, back in again for the very first time and all of that. Whatever. Jacques Slater's back. How we doing, man?
Welcome. I'm good. Thank you for having me back on the show that we host together.
First of all, I want to give a shout out to our good buddy Nick Engvall for subbing in for Jacques. Really appreciate that. Definitely killed it on that episode. But Jacques, you are back from...
Shout out to Nick.
Yeah, you are back from China, and you were there with Anta and Kyrie Irving. He flew you out on his private jet, and you got to go visit.
That's not true.
That's absolutely what happened. Yeah. And I'm not jealous or anything like that. I'm just pointing out like the truths of things that happened to you over there. Yes.
Truths.
Yes. You were on a private jet.
Good choice. Good choice of words.
Yes.
Great choice of words.
How was the trip, man?
It was a very interesting trip, honestly. There's so much happening between Kyrie and Anta that I don't think people really get. It's kind of exciting, actually. It's good.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there's, for one, like Anta has their own, basically they have their own empire in China. Mm-hmm. They're like, I think they're the top. They make the most revenue in China when it comes to sportswear brands.
Mm-hmm.
They own a ton of different brands that I didn't realize. So they own Fila, they own Arc'teryx, they own there's like 5 other companies that they own. Like, wow, like they're just part of the Anta family, which I wasn't aware of, but it's very cool. Like, so they have a whole bunch of like IP within the company, and it's pretty exciting if they can tap into those places. Also, they have their own like innovation center. They do their own distribution. They have their own logistics company. They have their own like chemical like the chemical stuff that they're working with. Like, they're working with brands directly. Like a lot of the stuff that we see at Nike and that we see at Adidas, that tech, and the companies that produce that tech, like they're already working with Anta, and Anta has had access to a lot of those things before Nike and Adidas has access to those things. So a lot of the technology we see coming out of those brands isn't really created by Nike and Adidas. It's created by some chemical company somewhere. And so Anta has deals in place with all of those companies before Nike and Adidas has deals in place with those companies. The other thing, they have the ability to create things from beginning to the end. So like they own the factories. So they can turn something around super quickly. That's how we got the Kyrie so fast. That Kyrie was done in 8 months because they have access to it. Whereas a typical brand here in the States, it would take 18 months to get something like that done. So it's really fantastic what they have going on. They do have a lot of work to do in regards to how they want to approach the US market, because there's obviously a stigma about Chinese brands here in the States, and people look at Chinese brands in a certain way and don't really trust that either the quality is top notch, or that they're not just copying somebody else, or that it's cheap. It's like all those sort of things. So they have to overcome all of that, which is going to be really tough, because if that's how the market sees you, like their marketing plan has to be like, okay, how do we just turn our image around? Not even worrying about selling product. It's like they have to worry about turning the image around and making themselves different. And then they have to decide, another thing they have to decide is whether they want to be a Chinese company, or if they want to be a Chinese company that's, masquerading as an American company. So, I try to look at it as, I don't know how welcoming the US market is going to be to a Chinese company that's staying authentic to itself.
Right.
If that makes sense. So,
sure.
I mean, think of it like, how many people are going to wear clothing or footwear that has Chinese lettering on it?
Right.
If they're,
Right.
they're kind of staying true to their roots.
Hmm.
And then the other way I think they could go through it is like a sort of Hyundai Genesis sort of marketing where it's an Asian brand, but nobody knows that.
Right. It's kind of
Like they
like
don't.
oh no, it's kind of like when, people immigrate here to America and, they have like their Chinese name, their Korean name, their Japanese name, but then
Yeah.
they change it to Bruce,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
something like that. So it's a little bit more palpable or palatable to like, American audience. Do you think a possibility though, Jacques, like you did mention it, and I thought that was an interesting take. Do you think like a way they could do that is by not calling it Anta here in America and just going with Kyrie as like a brand? I mean, there's the Hella brand, like the lifestyle brand, but do you think
Yeah.
it might be a way that might be a path for them with Kyrie is to just call it a Kyrie branded shoe? No Anta logos, nothing like that. Or do you think like people even notice the Anta logo at that point? I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Well, there's two parts of that. Like there's a bunch of layers here when it comes to Anta. So they don't want to be just Kyrie's brand. They
Mm-hmm.
they want to be Adidas. They want to be Nike. They want to be
Mm-hmm.
their own brand. So
Mm-hmm.
while basketball is, think of it think of it this way. Kyrie is their Trojan horse as
Oh yeah,
opposed to
absolutely.
being,
Absolutely.
yeah. So they want to use Kyrie to get to the American market, even though they've
Mm-hmm.
had guys like Clay and KG. Kyrie is basically their Trojan horse, but they have incredible running shoes in their program. I actually have a pair over there. I should probably get them and show people. Hold on, I'll be right back. Juan, entertain the people while I go get the shoes.
Well, anyways, no, I think it's an interesting way to go about it because Anta definitely has like these aspirations to become a worldwide brand and not just one that's succeeding in China. And I think a brand that also had that similar issue when they were trying to break through here in America is Li Ning and D Wade, and they're still trying even
Yes.
to this day. Like Li Ning has like fantastic D Way of Wade sneakers. I vouch for the quality. I vouch for like how they look and everything, but it's been tough for them. So maybe that has to do with it being called Li Ning, but Anta seems to have like these aspirations to do the same, but they want Anta to be front and center and not just like as you meant like I asked like would it work if it was just Kai? No, they want
Yeah.
Anta to be front and center as the brand. Kyrie is like you said the Trojan horse.
Yep. So like this is one of their running shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and they use their own. They have their own like foam, which is very similar to Boost. They call it Nitro.
Uh-huh.
But this all kind of speaks to how new they are
Mm-hmm.
in the like looking at the American market, is because they call their foam Nitro, which they obviously can't call here in the States because
Right.
Puma has Nitro. So
Yes.
they have this, but then again, this also looks very much like the Alpha Fly.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that to contend with because they don't have a very distinct onto design language yet.
Right.
They
Mm-hmm.
have designs, but none of it feels like distinctly onto, which is a
Mm.
challenge that I think another challenge that they're going to have to face because don't people right now, people don't know how to recognize onto. Like you know how to
Right.
recognize Nike, or you know how to recognize Reebok or Adidas or even
Mm-hmm.
On or Hoka. They have a very distinct look and feel to them, and
Right.
Anta doesn't have that yet. So
Yeah.
once they get kind of over those initial hurdles, which I think is very possible, especially in today's market, as the American consumer is a lot more knowledgeable and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully
Tastes are changing. Tastes are definitely
tastes are
changing.
changing and have a larger palette
Mm-hmm.
for things that they'll be able to really break into the market. I think they have a great opportunity. I think they're going to have to spend some money in order to market
Absolutely.
themselves
Yeah.
and get that image sort of thing and kind of reframe that image of who they are and what they can do and show that they can make quality on par or even better than some of the American manufacturers. But
Right.
that's just going to take time.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, like we mentioned, Li Ning has been working for years trying to get into the market with D
Yeah.
Wade, and it hasn't really made that much of a dent. So Anta definitely has like an uphill battle in front of them. So you did
Yeah.
mention that we've talking about tastes are changing and like consumers are becoming more educated and like looking for other brands to like look to. And I think someone who is going to be hoping that that is the case is Jaylen Brown. who just revealed his performance brand, which is called 741 Performance, and prominently
No,
featured
I'm gonna change headphones. Hold on, Juan. Hold on, because these I don't know if it's me or if it's you. I'm gonna change headphones because
okay, okay.
these keep going out.
Oh,
So I
okay.
don't know why
Yeah,
these
we'll
keep
figure out where
going
to cut
out.
this. Yeah, we'll figure out where to cut this part.
Yeah, it's fine. No, we can just leave it. We'll just leave it here. Let people know.
You want to just keep going? All right, cool. All right,
Yeah,
so while
let's keep
Jacques
it.
is
Yeah, let's keep it real.
while Jacques is changing headphones here, let's talk about Jaylen Brown's performance brand, which is appropriately called 741 Performance. So he revealed it yesterday, and the shoe that he's been rocking is prominently featured. It's called the Rover, and I'm still not sure how to feel about it because it's not really the most aesthetically pleasing shoe to me, just in general. But at least he's trying something different. I think that much I can respect about what Jaylen is trying to do. He's trying something different. He's branching out on his own. It's kind of what we thought Kyrie was going to do, but I understand the
Yeah,
reasonings why Kyrie would go to take the Anta route and go with
yeah,
that way. But Jaylen is yeah, no, he's trying to branch out on his own. I mean, he talked like I guess his team when they were talking to Complex talked about like turning down deals that were worth up to $50 million, and that's not nothing. So I mean, like Jaylen has a lot of confidence in what he's doing, and I hope it works out, but I don't know if it will, just because of the sheer uphill battle that like Lance is facing. Like 741, like people aren't really gonna be like, what is the expectation with that? And of course, there's also just Jalen's. It's I don't want to say baggage, but there's a lot of things going. But there's a lot of things with Jaylen going on where, he was talking about being snubbed by Team USA and he's trying to pin that on Nike. But I feel like when he complains about Nike, it's different when Kyrie complained about, Nike. Like when Kyrie was complaining about Nike, people were kind of on his side because I think he said something like, was it the Kyrie Infinity? He was not a fan of that. He didn't seem like he was okay with the design. And of course, he already had like a huge following. And if Kyrie's not cool with that, his fans are not going to be cool with that as well. But when
right.
Jaylen says something about Nike, everyone's like, you just saying stuff to say stuff. It just that's what it kind of feels to me is like, I mean, there are some valid points, sometimes where he does get when he's criticisms of Nike. But I feel like a lot of people are just like, okay, dude, like we get it. You don't like Nike. Maybe Nike didn't offer you the deal that you wanted, or you're trying to seek something that no brand is ever going to offer you, or you're trying to like, do something that is just not feasible for these brands, or you're not, or maybe these brands don't see him in that way. So
Right.
going to independent route is definitely like the way to go for him. And like I said, I hope it works out for him, but just looking at the shoe itself, I don't know if it's like a great starting shoe to get people on board. I mean, he has his own lifestyle brand, the Juice brand, and they did a collab with Bathing Ape, and I thought that looked pretty neat. But the shoe itself, the Rover, I guess it's called,
Yeah.
it's a knitted upper shoe with some jeweled things on them that kind of remind me of like what is it, the Zoom Flight 95, or the I think we wrote on the show the Air Max Up Tempo 97. It looks like those things. So
Yeah.
it's not even like a wholly unique shoe. It's just it seems like a shoe that Nike would make. It just doesn't have the swoosh on them.
Oh, got you. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
I think the as far as like his relationship with Nike, I don't know all the details in that relationship, but I do know that he was super opposed to the whole Kyrie situation, and that really
Hmm.
kind of sparked his complaints about them. And
Right.
just justified or not, I think he has the free will
Of course.
to do that. I just think the reason why I think people look at him differently is just because people didn't tie him as closely to Nike as they tied Kyrie to Nike. And
Hmm.
maybe that's why there's a difference in the way that his complaints are received.
Hmm.
Because, he wasn't a Nike signature athlete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think Kyrie, since Kyrie was a signature athlete, that's why they gave him that sort of grace in his situation. And people thought like, oh, Nike is trying to screw over this guy as opposed to Jaylen, who wasn't a Nike athlete. It almost seemed like he was jumping on the bandwagon in a
Right.
sense. and that I think that's why his was framed a different way. Maybe. Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing is that, it is his own brand. Like, he's following in the footsteps of, guys like Patrick Ewing, Stephon Marbury, and those have had, like, varying degrees of success. Like, Ewing Athletics has come and gone. Like, it's had, like, its ups and downs through the years. It was, it was kind of a thing in the early 90s when, Patrick Ewing actually started it, but then it went away for a very long time. And then it came back, at the height of, like, everybody liking retros and all that. And now it's kind of like just here and there. Every once in a while, you'll see a tweet, you'll see a post about like a new Ewing Athletics sneaker, and I'm like, oh, they're still doing that. But good for Patrick, right? And then with Marbury, I mean, he's done so many different things through the years. He had like his thing with what was it, Stephen Barry's, those discount retailers, like back in the days.
Yeah.
And people thought it was going to be neat. Oh, $20 basketball shoes, but they didn't feel great. They were not really good sneakers at all. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing I like about what Jaylen is doing is that with his Rover shoe is that he's pricing it, at least for the kid sizes, cheaper than you would like if you wanted like a Anthony Edwards shoe or a LeBron shoe. I think that's a smart move, just business wise, is to get the kids. Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of like kids who are like Jaylen Brown fans. So definitely if they see that Jaylen is pricing his shoes and they can tell their parents like, oh look, Jaylen Brown's my favorite player, and these shoes are super affordable. You don't have to get me LeBrons. You don't have to get me Anthony Edwards. You can get me these cheaper, but also cooler looking Jaylen Brown shoes if they think it looks cool. So I think that's at the very least, that's a smart move on Jaylen's part. But I mean, I still have my doubts about how it's going to pan out because he definitely has aspirations because before this, he was talking about like, oh, I want to work with different brands at the same time. And I have no idea how that would work, really. But maybe 741 is something that we mentioned on the show. Maybe 741 is something he pitches to a Puma or to a New Balance or to an Adidas at some point. Like, hey, we can do like a collaboration where like there's 741 branding also on the sneaker itself. So maybe that's a play. Like that's his version of a Trojan horse is to like prove himself and see like people are jumping on board. And then he can go to a big brand and be like, hey, I would like to work with you so I can get like the marketing, the tech and all that stuff. And like, so we can have like, for example, like he used to do with Adidas and who knows what his relationship with his Adidas these days, but maybe he goes back to Adidas and it becomes like a co-branded Adidas 741 sneaker. So he still gets, he gets the credit. He gets the credit for like doing something unique. But he also he gets the best of both worlds is basically what I'm trying to get at is like he kind of gets that at some point. He'll never work with Nike at this point. Nike's probably that door's probably shut at this point. You never know, never say never, but I could see him going to a different brand and being like, "Hey, look at this thing that I did. It's successful. People are on board. Hey, let's work together on something so I can grow and you can grow."
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Can you think of another shoe brand that's collaborated with another shoe brand?
I mean, not really. Like I've never heard of. I mean, there was but it was because Adidas owned Reebok. There was those sneakers like a couple of years ago where there was like a co-branded like was it a Reebok Question that had like James Harden's logos on it and vice versa. There was like a Harden shoe with AI's like branding on it. So, but that was because Adidas owned Reebok at the time. But not. I don't think I've ever seen like a collaboration on that level. I mean, there's that. It's funny because there's that Foot Locker thing, right? Where the 50th anniversary, where all these brands are like teaming up, but they're doing their own shoe. They're not like
they're not collaborating together. They're each collaborating with Foot Locker,
right? So
and like Foot Locker doesn't make its own shoe either.
Yes.
So would Y3 would that be?
I mean, that's more of like a fashion label, though. I think. Yeah, with the Yamamoto.
Yeah, that'd be more like if his Juice brand collaborated. Yeah, that'd be more like if it's Juice. Yeah, I mean, I think what he's asking is if that's still the plan. We knew that. I mean, that was obviously the plan prior to the reveal of 741. So I think now the plan would just to be do collaborations like everybody else does collaborations. I don't think he could do a larger like sneaker brand collaboration. It would have to be, a collaboration with Joe Freshgoods and Soleil Berry and stuff like that. I don't Jeremy Scott, for lack of a better word name, but like those are the kind of things that I think he would have to do now. I don't see a world where Puma or Nike or Adidas collabs with him on his own shoe. That just doesn't, unless they buy him out, which
right. That's also a possibility.
Yeah, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be a huge shift in this footwear world where people are all of a sudden jumping on the Jaylen Brown bandwagon, and that seems highly unlikely. But yeah, I'm all for like the chaos of it. Like, I hope that it does do well and that we see a lot of like shifts in the footwear space, and Jaylen does grow 741 into something where, it becomes like a Curry brand almost, like where he can sign his own athletes or that kind of thing. I think like just doing this in this era, like, it was different when it was like Ewing Athletics or Marbury and all of that. Like, it was different when that was happening. So like we're in a different era now where maybe athletes are more primed or more aware and cognizant of like what they want to do as like a brand onto themselves. Yeah. And to branch out. So I think if anybody has a chance right now, it would have been Kyrie, honestly. Like, if Kyrie had done this, not Jaylen, I think it would have been a better chance, just because of like what we talked about, the equity. Yeah. The fan 100%. Base. Kyrie has a bigger fan base than Jaylen. I mean, Jaylen is definitely like top 10 player, great player, and like, somebody who will do great things, but he's still not on that Kyrie level where people love him in the way that they love Kyrie.
Right.
So he's not there yet, but if he keeps going at this rate and like, opens himself a little bit up more to the public and becomes more of like a affable guy, just somebody who's like, fun and all that. Like, I think he does have an opportunity to do that. So I'm all for the chaos of it.
I the only problem I have with it is the pricing. I think they're too expensive.
The men's side, the adult size.
The adult size, yes. $200 is, for a startup brand, in a sense, is very expensive. I think I would have loved to see, like, I think consumers have a problem paying $200 for a shoe that they already know about and that they already have some sort of tie or allegiance to. So for him to, I think I would have like to see these at like let's say like the 150 mark. I think 150, 160, 200 to me, and I buy sneakers all the time. $200 feels like a lot for a pair of sneakers.
Oh yeah, like that's a number. It's like that mystical number of like, oh, that's a little bit too much. Like, even if you said 199, it would still be just a little bit more agreeable, even though it's just like $1 difference. But once you see that 200, it becomes like, like it becomes a different proposition for a consumer to be like, oh man, like why is this $200? Why it doesn't make sense. And
it doesn't make sense.
It takes a special kind of sneakers, takes a special kind of connection to the athlete behind the sneaker to really justify that price, regardless of, how good the tech might be or how well it performs. So Jaylen definitely. You're right. Like,
I just say, and to be fair, I feel the same way about the Air Jordan 39. I feel the same way about Jordan retros that are over $200.
LeBrons,
LeBron. Like, I feel the same way about those. So it's not just him. I don't agree with the $200 price point for a lot of things in the footwear world.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Well, hoping for the best. Like, I think, this is definitely like, I know we make jokes about it because we're Laker fans. Yes. But we hope for the best for Jaylen. Like, we hope that it becomes like something that, becomes successful and that people latch on to. I just wish it looked better at the end of the day. I wish that were over, and the pricing is definitely a hindrance for sure. Cause I know when I first read that article on Complex, it was like, oh, he's planning to make it 40% off like signature shoes. But then I saw it was just kid sizes. I'm like, oh, oops.
I heard like, oh, it's gonna make it affordable for kids and all this, and I was like, oh, okay, I like this lane. As long as it's a good quality shoe, that's great. But then $200 is like, oh, that's
Oh,
you,
oh,
you, that's
you making it up. You making it up on us.
right. Yeah, yeah, making it up on the big sizes. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, moving on to a bit of a, I don't know, like bittersweet sad news, Jacques. Before we recorded,
Oh,
Derrick Rose announced his retirement. D Rose is
yeah.
hanging it up, and I gotta say, it's one of those like I feel old. I feel old, Jacques, when I heard that news because I feel like I was there. I was a grown, full ass adult throughout the whole Derrick Rose career arc. You know,
Yeah.
so it's not one of those like you're a kid, you grow up, you watch your favorite player, like a Penny Hardaway or a Grant Hill, you're still a kid. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
look at these guys in the NBA and all that stuff. You still have like your voice is still like, whatever. But
Yeah.
but this one is different because we're grown ass men and like we see like a kid like D Rose come up and become All-Star MVP, somebody who we all pegged as like a legend, somebody who was going
Yeah.
to become an all-time
Yeah.
great, and then to see him be robbed of that with injuries and just general just bad juju the rest of the way. It's a bummer, man. Like, we will always have those memories of young D Rose just being an absolute killer on the court. Just the way that he moved, just the way that he contorted his body to make these wild moves. Like, we'll always have those memories, but it's also going to be one of those great what ifs of the NBA because,
Yeah.
he started out so young and just great out the box.
Just great. Amazing.
Man, really thought he was going to be like the guy who was going to compete against, the Miami Heat LeBron teams with D Wade and all the big three. Really thought he was going to be competing with that, but then it just doesn't happen for him. And then it's just goes from team to team and you kind of hope for the best. And then there are and every once in a while you'll see flashes, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll see like I think he scored like 50 or something in Minnesota and people were just like happy and just like overjoyed that he did something like that.
Yeah.
But it's so far and few in between. And now it's that's it. Like we don't really have like that many players from that era really still going. I think it's like I think Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love are the only ones still going from that particular
that draft class.
I think so. And it's like don't retire Russ, don't retire K Love. Like you guys are like keeping me young. Like when these guys are like stepping out, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah,
But
that's interesting because Russ still feels young.
yeah, that's the other
You know
thing
what I mean?
too.
Yeah, Russ still feels like he's a young player, even though he's been in the league for a while. He doesn't feel like a player that's one of the, he doesn't feel like he's one of the older players. He still feels like young.
Absolutely.
Kevin
not.
Love feels like
A
he's
little
on
bit.
the older side.
Yeah, he's on the older side.
Yeah. That's super interesting. I never thought about it that way. But yeah, it's sad to see Derrick go. Such a generational talent, incredible player, incredible like tied himself to the game. So much love for the game, so much love for Chicago when he was playing there.
Hometown kid.
Just a hometown kid. Just left everything out on the floor. It hurt, I think, the entire basketball community when he got hurt. And the fact that he was never able to return back to the heights of his before the injury is one of those stories that will live on forever in the world of basketball, of what ifs. He didn't get hurt. Where would he be? How good could he have been? How far could he have gone? Sort of stories, which is very sad. But I'm sad to see him go. Congrats to Derrick Rose. You inspired generations of basketball players, and your sneakers will live on forever. So congratulations. Enjoy your time away from the game. Relax, kick your feet up, do whatever it is life has brought you. We appreciate you. We appreciate your game. We appreciate the passion and everything you brought to the game. For sure.
And come home to Chicago. I mean, I think that's one thing
Yes,
I think
that
we
would
would
be
all
good.
like to see.
Yeah.
Like, do the 1-day contract. Like, I'm going to
Yes.
retire as a Chicago Bull. I think that's something that we all like to see. And you brought up the sneakers. And, it's been an interesting journey with Adidas.
Yes.
People were really checking for the Adidas D Rose, like, the 1, 2, and the 3 and all that stuff. But then when he got injured, that started a whole chain reaction of people trashing Adidas, blaming them for his injuries, which, you know, as anybody who has any like knowledge of like how, you know, anything works, is like that's probably not the reason why D Rose got injured. Like, and that started like, you know, a whole thing about like people trashing Adidas for a long time, which was very unfair. But yeah, man, like he leaves behind like a great sneaker legacy with Adidas. He's definitely one of those guys that they still make retros to this day. Like they're making retros, and I think most of them do come out in China. He has a huge following there, so I think like people are gonna look back. I think they're gonna look back fondly on D Rose. You know, his sneakers and just his career in general. It's gonna be like a Penny Hardaway kind of thing. Another player who was like robbed of, you know, so much. We were robbed of like, you know, so many great moments. We could have had so much with Penny, and the same thing is gonna be
years.
Yeah, and we're gonna we look back fondly on Penny, and we're gonna look back the same on D Rose in the same way. And the other thing about it too is because we were also knee deep in the sneaker blog thing when D Rose was coming up, and we have like, and we were part of those, you know, sometimes those trips. And my fondest memory of that was, I forget if it was like the D Rose 3 or 4, and it was a trip to Chicago, and we got to go to the United Center. Yeah. And, you know, it was the summertime, and was it the summertime or fall? But like they had a lot of fans there, a lot of kids come out, and they did the whole Chicago Bulls entrance, and I had never seen that before. Like they did the song, like, you know, when Michael Jordan used to come out. Yeah. And they announced D Rose, and I felt like a kid because I was sitting, you know, we were sitting close. I think you were there too, Jacques. Like, yeah, we were sitting like courtside, and then like D Rose comes out, and you hear the announcer call Derrick Rose, and I'm like, yo, this is everything that I thought it would be like. I mean, obviously, it's like the energy, like, you know, it wasn't a full stadium, but it was still like a lot of people there, and you know, you kind of get that feeling of like, oh, this is what it's like when, like, you know, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen used to come out, right? And Derrick Rose for a second there had that same love, had that same energy when Derrick Rose would come out there, you know, people were checking for him and people loved him in that way. And yeah, man, like that's a memory that I'll always carry. Like that's one of the things I greatly appreciate during that time, was like to be able to experience something like that. And yeah, and then there was the other trips in Vegas, where he was there with like, and that's when you kind of started to see like things change, because you know, Damian Lillard was coming up, James Harden was coming up, and D Rose wasn't, you know, the guy anymore. He was just one of the guys. One of the guys, yeah. So I mean, you could kind of see like things were changing at that point, which was a little sad. Like, I'll be quite honest, like it was kind of, I wouldn't, like, you know, it's still cool to see like he was out there with all of the other Adidas guys, but it was kind of a bummer because there was a time where D Rose was enough to justify a sneaker event, a huge rollout for a signature shoe, and then to see him transition into being just one of the Adidas guy, one of the many in the Adidas roster, was kind of a sight to see. It was like, oh man, we are really moving on to a different chapter, huh?
Yeah, a lot of that is it's tied to a couple of different things. Obviously, how you're playing and if you're winning. And once he got hurt, that really changed the conversation around him. And then I think it's your marketability too. I think that has a lot to do with it as well. Like LeBron obviously has continued to remain marketable even in, you know, throughout his whole entire career, but he's also been winning off and on throughout his entire career. So he maintained that high level of play. So I'd like to imagine that if Rose didn't get hurt, he would have maintained that high level of play and maybe won some championships in there and got to that place. But that injury just I think it took away so much from him, from what he could have been in the limelight sort of way. I'm not sure that that's what he necessarily wanted. I feel like he's not a player that wanted that sort of limelight and the Hollywood side of it. I think he just wanted to play ball and play ball well. That's probably I feel like that's more of his story than anything else.
If anything, that actually reminds me, like he's actually more like Penny Hardaway than we give him credit for, because Penny was never like the type of person who was like very outgoing. They needed to create Little Penny for him. You know, they needed to do that for him, to create an alter ego like the Chris Rock voice. They needed to do that for Penny to kind of give him a little bit more vibe and personality, because Penny was another guy who just liked the ball. So I guess I guess he really is this generation's Penny Hardaway, which is both great, but also kind of bittersweet. So,
Bittersweet at the same time.
yeah. So, yeah, no,
Man.
shout out to D Rose. Enjoy retirement. And, yeah, we'll see you around in Chicago, hopefully.
Yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
he's going to
I'm
be,
sure.
I'm sure he's
I'm
going to be.
sure.
I'm sure every time like they call him, it's kind of like those Knicks games where they bring out like they roll out like old Knicks legends and like people are cheering for them even though they played for the Knicks for like a year. But with D Rose, I'm sure every time they roll out D Rose there, it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna
Be
nuts.
wild.
But before we go,
Uh-huh.
it's time for America's favorite, the world's. What am I saying?
The
America?
world's.
The world's favorite sneaker related segment. It's Sneaker Mount. It's Sneaker Mount Rushmore plus time.
Rushmore. There it is.
All right. We'll come up with a soundboard someday, or not. Who knows? But okay, so today we are going to be doing the Air Jordan 4 Sneaker Mount Rushmore Plus, which once again is one OG, one non-OG, one collab, one PE, and one wildcard. So I forget. Well, Nick went first last week, and I think I went first the week prior. So Jacques, you have the honors of going first this week. So what is your pick for the OG colorway of the Air Jordan 4?
Black and red. This has got to be black and red.
Oh,
I mean,
there's
no other. I mean, what other Jordan 4 can you pick for like the OGs? Like that's
doing it again.
Clearly.
Doing it again. This is sabotage. I feel like I'm doing this to myself. You go first, and I'm just like, oh man. Well, anyways, yeah. I mean, there's no other choice. It is the black and red playoffs, but to make it different, I'm going to go with the military blue, just because it's the only one that I really think about when I think about OG colorways of the Jordan 4 besides the playoff. So I'm gonna go with the military blue. White cement, not so much. It's fine, but military blue, I do kind of have a fondness for.
Yeah, the military. You know what? Some people, I think some people like the military blue more than the black and red. I personally don't, but I get it.
Yeah. So, moving on to non-OG colorway, Jacques, your pick will be
the Air Jordan 4 Fear.
Ooh, oh, those are good.
Yeah.
Those are good. Any particular reason for the Fear?
I just really love that colorway. They're coming back, I believe, this year or maybe next year.
Yeah. It's coming back.
So I want to get another pair because my pair it squeaks, so I haven't been able to wear it. I haven't been able to wear them because they squeak.
That's a sign. That's a sign that you actually wear your sneakers. Hey, hashtag wear your kicks.
Hashtag wear your kicks.
Yeah, man. That's when it's definitely shown some signs of like wear, tear, and age. So
yeah.
For my non-OG pick of the, I'm inspired by Nick Engvall's like I'm going to show my sneakers. So,
okay. I like it.
Yeah. So today I have one. So the other ones I don't have. I'm not that cool. But for my pick for the non-OG colorway of the Air Jordan 4, it's the Sashiko colorway.
Oh, yeah, those are good.
Yeah,
those
Japanese
are good.
denim. I love the design. I mean, people love the Levi's collabs, and I thought those were neat too. But they're so out of my price range because I ain't paying resale for those. But these were a good alternative. But ultimately, I think I like these better than the Levi's collabs because there's actually like a design on them. And if I ever wanted to actually go ahead and like distress them and put them through whatever it is that customizers go through, like I still have that option at some point. But I do like these. These are definitely one of my favorite pairs of the 4s.
Yeah,
the Sashiko,
that's a good
Japanese
colorway
denim.
too. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. So moving on to collab, Jacques, what is your pick for the Air Jordan 4?
It's got to be the Cause.
Ooh, very good.
Although
very
that's
cool.
technically 2 gray ones, though, huh?
Yeah.
No, you know what? I'm gonna skip because the Fears are gray. I'll go with the most recent. I'll switch it. I'll go with the most recent Ama Manier.
Okay. Cool.
The While You Were Sleeping colorway. That one's really good. Hot quality is great. I'll take that one. I'll go with that one instead.
Cool. Yes. So for my collab, I'm going to go with the Undefeateds. Those are one of, I think was it the first Jordan 4 collab or one of the first Jordan collabs, but it's definitely one that people look for, like people love. It was just so unique at the time, and to this day people are hoping for like a second coming of that, and
Yep.
maybe undefeated goes back to the well at some point. Who knows? But hey, Jordan Brand, I mean Nike and Jordan Brand are into like bringing back classics that people thought would never come back. So it's not out of the realm of
It's
possibility.
not out of the realm of possibility.
So yeah, no, maybe undefeateds will come back and they'll be cheap. It's kind of we are in the era of like people who we are in the era of like sneakers that were beloved or super expensive when they first came out, and now like the second coming is like not so much.
It's
Look
like,
at
all right, cool.
all right, cool. All the KDs that have come back, all the LeBrons that have come back, they were super hyped at the time. They're still super expensive, the original versions, but the retros have been like, eh. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit that I guess that's a topic for a different episode, but yeah, it's weird, right? It's weird that like these sneakers that we desire so much and we hope come back, and when they do come back, people are just like, eh.
Cool.
Cool. All right, so moving on, Jacques, what is your PE version of your PE pick for the Air Jordan 4?
The Oklahoma Sooners colorway.
Ooh, I think I know what those look like, and I think
it's like a reddish, almost burgundy sort of.
Yeah.
Really dope. I just love that burgundy. I'm not an Oklahoma Sooners fan at all. I could care less about the team to be fair. Sorry if there's any Oklahoma fans out there. I just think the colorway looks really dope.
Yeah. Shout out to Jim Ross. I remember that from the old days. The announcer for WWE, he was a Sooners fan. So and they would play the Oklahoma theme song every time he would come out. So that was always pretty cool. Yeah. But for my choice for player exclusive or PE or just an exclusive in general, I'm gonna go with the Wahlburgers. The very rare made for Mark Wahlberg sneaker. I know it's not gonna be your choice because it's green. But
I would never do that.
But I can't deny that they look pretty cool, Jacques. Like, I remember walking, like there was a Wahlburgers here in was somewhere in LA. I forget where it was, and I saw like a billboard, and I think it was like Wahlberg himself, and he was wearing a pair of shoes, and I'm like, oh man, these look pretty neat. Like, like I know it's just a picture, but like I was like, oh man, these are pretty cool looking Jordan 4s. So I can't knock it, I can't hate on it. So yeah, that's my pick for the PE is the Wahlburgers.
There's so many Jordan 4s that are really good. So this was one of the harder ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And so finally, for the wild card, Jacques, what is your wild card pick for the Jordan 4?
Gosh, there's so many.
Yeah, right?
There's so many good ones. I think, you know what? I'm going to go with one that I feel like is extremely wearable, and that's the Oreos. I feel like the leather was really good on those. Mm-hmm. And they like when you wore them a lot, they had this wear-in look that was really nice. So I'm gonna go with those. I'll go with those because I feel like I would wear those quite a bit.
All right, cool. And so for my pick, I will go with something that came out. Well, was it last year? And it ended up becoming like a lot of people's picks for sneaker of the year. The Nike SB. The Nike SB Jordan 4.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
So I don't have a pair, but everybody who has a pair swears by it, and I've seen it in person. It looked great, and just the novelty of like it being. Do you want to call it a collab, Jacques? Like, could it have counted as a collab, even though it's like Nike SB? It's like it's weird because. It's weird. No, right? It can't be.
That's still Nike, so I wouldn't call that a collab.
When I was kind of doing research for this bit, and I was like, what are the top Jordan 4 collabs? And they would show like the Nike SB, and I'm like, is that a collab? I wouldn't call that a collab because it's the same company,
Yeah, the same company. I guess, no. We're not going to.
Like
no.
That would have
wild card. We'll call it a wild card.
We'll call it a wild card. Like if you had picked it as a non-OG, I would have been fine with it. Like it would have worked either as a non-OG or a wild card. So yeah, I just had that weird like thought when I saw like people were on the internet were calling it a collab, and it just never made sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Good call on that one.
Yeah. So so that is our picks for the Jordan 4 Mount Rushmore. We'll put it up on the socials. People can vote on that. I did win the Jordan 3 vote. So
Oh.
I want to thank all the people out there. I'm going to do the wavy thing that you did and just be like very thankful and be like, ooh, oh, we won. We're going to do the LeBron thing. When he used to do the thing, when he did shut it down and all of that. Yeah, man. I mean, or we do the night, Jacques, night, Jacques.
I think people
won.
people just felt bad. People just felt bad because I had won.
Night, Jacques, night.
People felt bad because I won before. That's all it was.
Yeah, and we just posted the video for the Sneaker Mount Rushmore reward question. I already know I'm gonna lose to that, so if Nick wants to post a video of him doing like a celebration, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for watching. The Too Hard to Pass podcast, episode 6.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, we already got like a couple questions for a future mailbag, Jacques. So,
cool.
If anybody wants to send in some more questions or thoughts or whatever, send it to toohardtopasspodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is toohardtopasspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for watching, listening on all the platforms. Leave a review. Yes, 5 stars. And in the words of Bomani Jones, if you leave 4 stars, I am inclined to believe you are a hater. So leave 5 stars. Leave a good review. Greatly appreciate it. And again, I am Juan Martinez. And
I am Jacques Slade. And we will see you next time.
Peace.